This week we finally got around to watching our Force Awakens Blu-ray, and as great as that movie was, it got us thinking about the many different ways the Star Wars saga could have gone, especially if George Lucas would have followed up his 1977 masterpiece with his originally planned low-budget sequel. And no, we're not talking about the crime against humanity that was the Star Wars Holiday Special. Hey guys, welcome to Rejected Movie Ideas, where we celebrate some of our favorite movies by exposing their ill-advised sequel plans that never came to fruition. And there's no better example of this than George Lucas's cheap original sequel to Star Wars. Originally rejected by every major movie studio in Hollywood, Star Wars was far from a safe bet to produce in 1977. But thankfully, 20th Century Fox saw enough potential in Lucas's ambitious sci-fi adventure script and eventually gave it a green light. However, Lucas had never envisioned Star Wars as one standalone 2-hour movie, but rather as a series of films, even though he most likely didn't have any idea of what those other films would be about. Enter up-and-coming writer Alan Dean Foster, who had the dubious honor of being chosen by George Lucas himself to not only write the novelization of the original Star Wars, but also to write a book that Lucas could use as the basis for a cheap sequel. Now, I'm sure you're asking yourself, why does the sequel have to be cheap? Aren't all big-budget movies supposed to be part of a 4-movie-long trilogy? Well, as crazy as it sounds, there used to be a time when sequels were seen as second-rate knockoffs, and studios rarely put a lot of money into them. They certainly wouldn't invest in a sequel if the original didn't make crazy amounts of box office cash. And since not even Lucas was sure that his tale of incestuous love and Sasquatch space pilots would work, he placed his bet on preparing for the cheapest possible follow-up he could make. And so Foster wrote Splinter of the Mind's Eye, a Star Wars sequel that features a surprisingly little amount of stars and an even smaller amount of wars. The story starts with Luke and Leia crash landing on a foggy swamp-like planet where they discover an operation led by the Empire to retrieve something called the Kyber crystal. This crystal can best be described as a shiny plot device that enhances the powers of the Force on whoever possesses it. Hence why the Empire is all giddy with excitement looking for the damn thing, and why the Skywalker siblings have to stop them. This leads the young rebel fighters to hack and slash their way through an array of B-movie swamp monsters until they finally make it to the temple that houses the legendary crystal. Unfortunately for the mischievous brother-sister duo, their dad has been following them all along and proceeds to beat the ever-living Force out of them for daring to steal something that he wanted to steal for himself. Not knowing when to quit, Leia actually picks up Luke's lightsaber and proceeds to use all her Force-wielding powers against her asthmatic old rival. Unfortunately, she gets her ass handed to her in what probably would have been the shortest lightsaber fight in Star Wars history. Not to be intimidated by Darth Vader's mastery of the Force, Luke is reinvigorated to fight when he hears the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi and proceeds to hack Vader's arm off before pushing him down a pit, proving once and for all that the star of Disney's newest franchise is a mentally deranged man who will murder his own father if the voices in his head tell him to. Now, as much as George Lucas wanted to make the most generic possible sequel to Star Wars from the get-go, the unexpected box office success of the original pushed him away from his cheapskate plans, and he set his sights on an ambitious big-budget follow-up that some consider to be the best film of the saga, because it is. However, despite knowing that he would not use a single plot point of Alan Dean Foster's story in The Empire Strikes Back, Lucas started his career-defining trend of not caring and milking his fans anyway, and proceeded to sell Splinter of the Mind's Eye as the first book in the Star Wars expanded universe. Those unlucky enough to have bought the book would have been treated to uncomfortable moments of sexual tension between the Skywalker siblings, which only further proves that either George Lucas didn't really have a plan for how his mythology would play out, or as we later learned, he just didn't care. Aside from common sense, the other thing notoriously absent from this story was Han Solo, something that the writer unsurprisingly explained by saying, "At the time I was writing Splinter, Harrison Ford hadn't committed to any further participation in Star Wars, hence I was specifically told not to use the Han Solo character. And without Han, it didn't seem logical to have Chewie in the book either." So, if you're looking for a Star Wars story that doesn't have two of your favorite characters and features more incestual tension and mutilation than your average Game of Thrones episode, then by all means, order Splinter of the Mind's Eye on Amazon. A used copy should go for about $8, which is more than what Lucas was planning on spending on filming the thing in the first place. Hey guys, aren't you glad we got Empire Strikes Back instead of Splinter of the Mind's Eye? Unfortunately, we still got Star Wars Holiday Special, but if you haven't seen it, don't waste your time. Instead, come on over to my channel, Practical Folks, where we did a Drunk Disney episode and watched it. That's me and 3 other very funny people getting drunk and watching it and making commentary on it, and you can watch that instead of actually watching it, which is like the worst thing ever made. I'm not just saying that, it's the worst thing I have ever seen. Also, be sure to subscribe, like, and shit. Damn it. Can you cut? Also, be sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel, and leave a comment letting us know if you have or haven't seen the Star Wars Holiday Special. And if you have, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.